And if people were to regain this connection to who and what they are, then there's nothing else they have to do. Because once you get that connection, you can see just how easy it would be to step away from the system. And all the fighting and all the finger pointing and all the stuff we do simply distracts people from ever doing that inner work and looking within and discovering the true power that they have. You know, while they're looking for the way out is within. And because they are constantly battling externally and they never really give themselves the focus they deserve or the attention that they need, I think it's all some airy-fairy, new age spiritual rubbish. They're not ever really prepared to step into their power. They want to shout and scream and point the finger and wave their fist at someone and say, you are the one. But then they want to rally the troops to go and fix it. Most of them, that's what they want to do. They want to point the finger at someone and then scream for someone else to fix it. You know, they can identify the problem. Okay, it's you, Mr. Rothschild or whatever. I name you as the problem. And that's it. That's what they do. And they sit there naming him as the problem and they don't do anything about it themselves. They just expect someone else to do something about it. And they think they've got the key to the puzzle there because they've got someone to point the finger at. And really, it's just a distraction from what it is that holds the system up itself, which is our compliance to it. Our compliance to it because of our lack of understanding, our lack of knowledge of the true value of ourselves. You know, it's such a paradox that we're caught in, and it's such an endless loop, an endless cycle that we're caught in. And even the resistance is just this endless cycle, this endless finger pointing, this endless shouting each other down, not ever stepping back and looking at the bigger web that holds the whole thing together. Because ultimately, it's just an idea. The whole system is just an idea. The whole matrix, it's just a concept. And it only exists because people believe it to be real. And when you really step back and look at things, folks, and you consider some of the concepts that I've discussed recently, the concept of the mud flood that happened sometime in the last few hundred years, the concept of them rewriting history, the concept of vast mining operations going on and them simply destroying civilization over and over again to cover up what they've just done and rewriting history for the next batch that comes along. When you really look at this and you consider it to be a possibility, I mean, I know it may sound quite outside the realms of possibility for most people because they believe what they're educated to believe. Most people believe history is what it is because all of these books look so genuine and they believe what's written in them. But ultimately, as I've said so often, all we really know, all we can confirm is that which exists within living memory. All the rest of it is hand-me-downs. And when you consider the possibility that this is just this ever-repeating cycle which is done by design and that civilization is destroyed periodically every few hundred years, it really begins to make a lot of sense. And you look at all the disaster concepts and disaster books and all the stuff that they bring us as well. So we're constantly waiting for a comet or waiting for this or waiting for 2012 or some big ending to happen. There's something that's about to happen. We're all constantly waiting for it. All these disasters happen every few thousands of years and we're long overdue. So everyone expects it. Everyone's expecting the end times. Everyone's expecting something big to happen. So they can simply make it happen. And they can do it every time. And it really does begin to make a lot of sense when you start looking at things. Start looking at some of the ancient artifacts lying around the place. There's a channel I've recently discovered on YouTube as well called New Earth. Very, very fascinating stuff this woman has come up with. I really love the way she thinks. There's one particular episode she did where she is discussing ancient roadworks and ruins on the Americas, on the North American continent specifically. I highly recommend people from the United States have a look at that episode. And from memory, I think the video clip is entitled Colossal Ancient Earthworks in America. She's from Belarus, so her voice sort of kind of has a Russian tilt to the accent, kind of a Russian tilt. And it may be a little bit difficult for you to understand what she's saying to begin with, but bear with it. She's a very knowledgeable woman and thinks right outside the box. And some of the information she presents during that particular presentation about ancient earthworks in the Americas is quite fascinating. and stuff that a lot of people in the United States can probably even go and confirm for themselves. Ancient earthworks, ancient canal estates that appear to exist around Florida, ancient electricity poles where they really shouldn't be, all sorts of things that are in places where they really shouldn't be if history is what they tell us it is. If the United States was really discovered in 1492, if it was really founded as the United States in 1776, if all of this stuff happened the way we are told it did happen, then none of these relics should really be there. And they all are there. So it's a very interesting thing, ladies and gentlemen. So what is going on? What is our history? What are these people who call themselves governments really up to? And what is going on in the background? And who is the controlling hand? Because really, when you look at it, folks, it goes way beyond Zionism. It goes way beyond the Jesuits. It goes way beyond any of this stuff. And no, folks, it goes way beyond the concept of God and Satan as well. You might think there isn't anything that could possibly go beyond those concepts. So when you really get down to this physical world we live in, you think about some of the underground bases and some of the weird stuff that goes on in this world. Some of the weird moon anomalies that we see. The moon is very, very strange, folks. I've always looked at the moon as something that really shouldn't be there. It's a lot easier to explain the moon not being there than what it is to explain it being there. And it really doesn't behave the way it should if it is what we're told it is. So God and Satan come a good deal later than what's actually going on in the world here, because there are real, tangible, physical things going on this world that are very much manipulating the direction reality is currently taking. There's all sorts of weird stuff going on in the world, folks. Reality is simply not what people think it is. But we're getting very close to break time here, folks, so I'll leave it there for now and we'll go and have a break. Thank you for joining me on the air today. It's always a pleasure to have your company. I'll be back to speak to you again in a few minutes. Don't go away because there's plenty more to come. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, so the concept of us being locked out of 98% of reality, 98% of who we are, really not having access to higher senses, to higher forms of communication, to higher forms of reality that may exist around us, not being able to see stuff that's there simply because we don't believe it's there. The whole concept of whether that would be possible. There is a story that when the Spanish arrived to conquer the Incas couldn't see the sailing ships because they didn't believe in sailing ships. Whether that's true is another question, but that is one of the theories that is presented to people. But the understanding that we do have higher senses and we do have higher languages and higher forms of communication that we're unaware of is a very interesting concept. The language of feeling and emotion that I've discussed with people so often, that I've discussed on the show so often, that I made the film, The Awakening, was simply attempting to convey this type of information to people. How you could understand the language of feeling and emotion, to even understand that you are speaking this language and being aware of what emotional energy you're projecting with your actions and through your life in general. The comprehension of your life being a prayer. Every action you perform, every thought that you have, every word that you utter, the emotion, the intention behind it, this is a form of prayer. It all leaves an indelible trace in the field. Everything you put out there, it stays there permanently. And it all produces the energy that this world is made of. The energy of manifestation, if you will. It's pretty esoteric out there sort of a concept, but we all know that emotion is a very, very powerful thing. You walk into a room where a couple has been fighting and you know instantly that they've been fighting, because we all say you could cut the air with a knife in here, because you can feel the energy of the room. You can feel the emotional output that has come from the people. You can feel it in the air as a tangible thing. And it's the same with every emotion that you express. And it's understanding that when you feel that feeling, this is actually the field talking to you. You are hearing or feeling the language of emotion, and you can speak back to it the way it can speak to you. And we're doing this all the time. We're projecting energy into the field via the emotional state that we're in, and this is helping create the reality around us. I've done whole shows about this, how you can change your life by changing your emotional approach to things. by understanding that your life is a prayer, by understanding that the true nature of prayer is giving thanks for the event because it's already happened, putting yourself in the emotional state where the prayer has already been answered. This is what will attract that reality to you, because it's a law of mirroring. It's not a law of attraction, it's a law of mirroring. This is how I got the job as a radio host, because I put myself in the emotional state where I was a radio host. And within 6 weeks, I was a radio host. Now, I've told this story so many times on air, and I made the film The Awakening to try to convey this type of understanding to people. And it's really important in dealing with everything that we're dealing with now that people remain aware of this language of feeling and emotion and be aware that they're speaking it all the time. I mean, it's very easy to forget. It's very easy to get sucked back into the matrix. I mean, I do it myself. But it's extremely important that we try not to do this, that we keep our energy levels high, because it is in maintaining this high energy level that you really find your true sovereignty. People who are looking for sovereignty, well, that's where it is, folks. It's already there within you. All you've got to do is bring it back to yourself. You know, you don't have to take any steps to become sovereign. You're already sovereign. If anyone is claiming you're not sovereign, well, ask them to explain how you're not sovereign. Because you are. It's knowing that makes it so. That's the thing. And if you don't know it, you never can be. And once you do know it, you realize that there's nothing else that can get in the way of that. There's no forms you have to fill out. There's no actions you need to perform. It's simply a state of being. That's what sovereignty is. True sovereignty, anyway. But again, even many of these quests are red herrings, because a quest for personal sovereignty doesn't really achieve anything. I mean, you can claim your sovereignty as much as you like in the face of this system, but again, the system still remains. It's still there. And that's the problem in itself, is the system and what it is doing to this environment that we live in. You know, when we claim our sovereignty and we isolate ourselves from the system and go and live off in the woods in our little sovereign lifestyle, it's great, it's good for us, but it doesn't really solve anything. It doesn't address the reason that created the need for us to do that to begin with. What we need is for humankind to regain their sovereignty. We need the entire human race to realize what is going on here and step away from the system, because it goes far, far beyond personal sovereignty. It goes far beyond the concept of nations. It goes far beyond the concept of government or any of this system at all. It really does. It goes far beyond the concept of religion, far beyond the concept of any mechanism that has been put there to divide you from other people. Because it's all about the division. That is the main tool that is used against us, and it is what is underlying every single mechanism that is put there, every single belief system that is put there. And belief systems have a huge, huge part to play in everything that we're facing as well. You know, people claiming they know what's going on when really they don't. Nobody knows what's going on here. Maybe the people who are controlling things at the top have a reasonable idea, but the rest of us are just left to figure it out. And we tend to adopt belief systems along the way, close our minds to any other possibility, and then argue with the people around us. And this has been a huge part of the problem, most especially in the last few years. And it truly is one of the biggest issues to address, because nobody likes to be told that they don't know what's going on. Everybody likes to believe that they know what's going on. And if you try to suggest to them otherwise, what happens is their ego kicks in, they get incredibly defensive about it, and they start ridiculing you or whatever, blah, blah, blah. This is what happened with the show that I put out a few weeks ago, Why Are They Hiding History?